and took out 2 spirit stones Klein and jade-like from his bosom. He gently placed them in front of Nie Tian, then sat down not far from him. Ying, who was cultivating with her eyes closed,
was also secretly paying attention to the surrounding movements, guarding against the return of the spirit beasts. She also noticed Pan Tao's unusual behavior, opening her eyes slightly. She silently watched Pan Tao and muttered, "This guy.
Why did he suddenly change his nature?" Although she was puzzled, she didn't think too deeply about it and closed her eyes to continue recovering. Time slipped away silently. After unknown period,
Everyone who was recovering with spiritual energy suddenly heard the sound of approaching footsteps. One by one, everyone opened their eyes, their expressions tense once more, fearing the escaped spirit beasts had returned to attack. "Don't be nervous.
It's not the spirit beasts," Ying announced, looking in the direction they had come from. "Those aren't the footfalls of spirit beasts, and they're not coming from the depths of the glacier region. If I'm not mistaken, it's the other 3 teams of trialists."
As expected of Ying, a cold voice cut through the air. The next moment, Yuanfeng of the Grey Valley emerged first. With Yuanfeng's appearance, the other trialists from Yunsong and Grey Valley quickly followed suit. "Grai."
Zhang Rui frowned and stood up. "Correct." Yuanfeng stepped forward, his cold gaze sweeping across the group. He looked at the corpses of the spirit beasts and the fallen Qin Shan and Zhu Fang. "It seems you've just been through a fierce battle."
"Did you encounter the Xuanbing giant python?" At this moment, Nan, who had fallen asleep, was awakened by Yuanfeng. He knew he had only napped for a short while. It couldn't have been very long, but even that short rest had noticeably restored his energy.
Upon opening his eyes, before even glancing at Yuanfeng, he noticed the 2 spirit stones in front of him. Only then did he see Pan Tao closest to him. He immediately realized the spirit stones were from Pan Tao, and offered a grateful smile and thanks.
"If you think highly of me, then accept these spirit stones," Pan Tao said solemnly. Nie Tian nodded, reached out, picked up the 2 spirit stones and placed them in his satchel. This exhaustion wasn't due to excessive spiritual energy consumption,
but a massive loss of mental and spiritual awareness. He did need spirit stones to recover. But since Pan Tao had offered them, he naturally wouldn't refuse. The trials of the Xuanhuan realm were far from over,
and no one knew what more dangerous situations they might face. With these 2 spirit stones, if his spiritual energy ever depleted, given time, he could recover much faster using them. This would significantly increase his chances of survival.
"We not only encountered the Xuanbing python but also the earthwalker lizard, damn it," Zhang Rui cursed, then said. "But we're strong enough. Although we couldn't kill the Xuanbing python and the earthwalker lizard, we at least forced them back. If it were you,
encountering both the earthwalker lizard and the Xuanbing python at the same time, you probably would survive."
"Shut your mouth!"
And Ying hissed. "Hey." Yunsong of the Yun family chuckled softly. "Cousin."
They just fought the Xuanbing giant python and the earthwalker lizard. They must have consumed a lot of spiritual energy. Look, they are all recovering their strength with spirit stones. This means their current combat power is insufficient." And, he added,
"2 of them are dead." Yunsong's eyes glinted, a malicious glint in them as he looked over, his gaze finally settling on Nie Tian. The moment his eyes fell on Nie Tian, his face turned cold, his eyes filled with venomous intent.
Who had been stopped by Ying, suddenly realized that his words had exposed their weakened state. He cursed himself for being so careless, and dared not speak again, instead glaring fiercely at Yuanfeng.
"Our primary objective in entering the Xuanhuan realm is those 4 level 2 spirit beasts." And Ying remains relatively calm. "The Xuanbing giant python fought us for a considerable time and should be significantly weakened.
You can bypass us and strike while it's vulnerable, eliminating it, no hurry." Yuanfeng from Grey Valley spoke in a cold tone, suddenly pointing a finger at Nie Tian from afar. "This man isn't from your Lingbao pavilion. I want you to hand him over to me."
"Once we have him, we'll leave with him to hunt the Xuanbing giant python deep in the glacial region." "You want Nie Tian?" And Ying was astonished. Pan Tao was also taken aback. Chapter 745. A grudge formed. "Where did Nie Tian offend you?" And Ying was puzzled.
"I don't remember him having any conflict with you in the Xuanhuan realm. What do you want him for?" "I don't need to explain myself to you." Yuanfeng's attitude was firm. "Just give me the man, and we'll leave immediately to hunt the Xuanbing giant python." He paused,
then coldly snorted, issuing a threat. "Otherwise, don't blame us for taking advantage of your weakened state and attacking you before you recover." "What, you want to start a fight now?" And Ying's face darkened.
"Precisely,"
Yuanfeng said coldly, and
Zhu Fang. 13 of them remained, barely alive after a brutal battle. Even Ying, after a period of recovery, had only reached 7/10 of her peak spiritual power. In this state,
she had no confidence in defeating Yuanfeng. The others were likely even weaker. A forced confrontation with the Grey Valley would almost certainly result in their defeat. She weighed the costs and benefits in her heart.
She looked far off at Nie Tian, wondering if he was worth the risk. And Ying, that Nie Tian, is not from our Lingbao pavilion. We don't need to fight the Grey Valley to the death for him, do we? Zhang Rui, who had just fallen silent,
whispered beside An Ying. The rules of Qingwan realm forbid killing. Even if Yuan Feng captures Nie Tian, he wouldn't dare kill him, perhaps. The other Lingbao pavilion trialists exchanged glances, remaining silent, but when Zhang Rui spoke,
their expressions showed agreement. Clearly they also believed it wasn't worth fighting the Grey Valley prematurely for an outsider, especially since they had just endured a bloody battle and hadn't recovered yet.
To engage in battle with Huigu at this moment would undoubtedly result in their defeat. Among the crowd, only Zhang Miao, saved by Nie Tian, looked anxiously at An Ying, shaking her head incessantly. Besides her, Pan Tao's face.
You have a grudge against Yuan Feng, he whispered beside Nie Tian. Nie Tian remained calm. I offended a woman from the Yun family of Black Cloud City. Her name is Yuan Shuying and she's Yuan Feng's aunt. So that's it.
Pan Tao nodded, abruptly standing up, ready to support him. At that moment Nie Tian also rose abruptly, his eyes fixed on Yuan Feng. What do you want? Nothing much. I just want to cripple you, Yuan Feng said coldly. Come on then. Nie Tian took a deep breath.
A fierce glint appearing in his eyes. He made up his mind the moment Yan Feng dared to approach. He would unleash the furious punch he had mastered in that foreign land upon him. After a short rest, his spirits revived considerably,
and he felt confident he could unleash that punch. He knew that after this one strike, he would be powerless to resist. But he also believed that this punch could kill Yuan Feng. He was never lacking in courage.
Especially when others were aggressive, he would never back down. What are you? Yuan Feng glanced at him disdainfully. Are you qualified to fight me one-on-one? You'll only catch my eye and ill deign to kill you when you reach the 9th level of Q refinement.
You dare not. Nie Tian deliberately tried to provoke him. Yuan Feng didn't care. He just looked at An Ying, impatiently saying, You're their leader. Surely you won't risk everyone for this outsider Hothid. Yuan Feng, if you want to touch Nie Tian.
Pan Tao roared. Yuan Feng was taken aback. Nie Tian turned his head, looking deeply at Pan Tao beside him, but said nothing. However, Pan Tao's attitude clearly affected An Ying, who had been hesitant,
gritted her teeth and quickly rushed over. She stood beside Nie Tian and Pan Tao, her long blade pointed at Yuan Feng. Her voice was firm as she shouted, Fight! Who's afraid? If you want to fight, we'll give you one. Why was this happening?
But after An Ying and Pan Tao had spoken, he could only passively support them, slowly approaching as well. The other trialists, though reluctant, were sensible. Seeing An Ying and Pan Tao's decision, they also came over.
An Ying, are you sure you've thought this through? Yuan Feng's face was cold. Certain, An Ying declared. For an outsider, to make everyone share the risk. Do you think it's worth it? Yuan Feng asked again.
Regardless of which side he belongs to outside the Qingwan realm, here in the Qingwan realm, since He's with us, He's one of us. An Ying brandished her long blade, glancing at the others behind her. All of you, if someone were to bully you like this.
I would do the same, An Ying shouted. Bloodbath! Fight to the death! Fight them to the death! Those trialists, spurred on by her words, responded with even greater ferocity. Yuan Feng's face paled slightly. He looked deeply at An Ying.
And the trialists from Lingbao Pavilion, he saw no hesitation or fear in their eyes. He didn't know that those who had just experienced a bloody battle were still immersed in the bloodlust of that fierce fight.
Their willingness to fight wasn't because of Nie Tian, but because they felt An Ying had been bullied by Yuan Feng. And they wanted to fight for her honor. Brother, Yin Song whispered, reminding him.
The suicidal ferocity in the eyes of the Lingbao Pavilion members made him secretly uneasy. He was the first to back down. Yuan Feng's expression shifted for a moment as he weighed the pros and cons. Suddenly, he nodded, glanced at Nie Tian, and said,
You followed a good leader. This time, you little brat got lucky. With that, he waved his hand, pointing deep into the glacial region. Let's go. He was the first to leave. The initiates from Grey Valley behind him visibly relaxed and immediately followed.
Soon, the 10 initiates from Grey Valley, one after another, surpassed them and disappeared into the glacial area. Only then did the tense atmosphere among the others ease. That's all there is to it. He shouted a lot, but he didn't dare to fight.
Yuan Feng is all talk. Does he think we're afraid of him? Damn it! If we hadn't just fought the swanbing giant python and the earth-walking lizard, I would have attacked him directly! Next time we see them, we'll show them what we're made of.
They really think they're something special. The relaxed crowd boisterously complained, accusing Yuan Feng of bluffing and never truly intending to fight. And Ying let out a deep sigh, her voice wary. It was incredibly dangerous just now. Yuan Feng.
You wouldn't understand. He's a madman, capable of anything. I had no idea what he might do. I was truly afraid he'd act without thinking. Pan Tao and Zhang Rui nodded in agreement, unlike the other trial participants.
They had heard stories about Yuan Feng since he entered Grey Valley. They knew Yuan Feng was ruthless and merciless. His inaction was likely a strategic move to conserve his strength.
Avoiding a life or death struggle that might only benefit Lingyan sect and Xuanwu Palace. Thanks, Nie Tian, the central figure in this event, thanked Pantao and Ying before collapsing onto the ground. He immediately closed his eyes.
Forcing himself to sleep, he knew that as long as he remained in the Xuanhuan realm, anything could happen at any moment. The only thing he could do was recover his strength as quickly as possible, preparing for any potential conflict. We saved you.
And that Xuanhao grumbled, dissatisfied. Nie Tian didn't even flinch. Shouldn't we thank everyone first, before we resume? We almost fought to the death for you in Grey Valley, Tong Hao said indignantly. The other youths, looking at Nie Tian,
who was closing his eyes as if about to fall asleep, also felt resentful. Zheng Ru's face was particularly cold and unfriendly. Tong Hao, can you shut your mouth? Pantao shouted.
Only he knew that the real reason Tong Hao was still alive was because of Nie Tian. Tong Hao's incessant taunting of Nie Tian was incredibly irritating. Pantao felt like punching his teeth out. Oh, he'll listen to you, brother Tao. Tong Hao looked wronged.
Don't waste any more time, and Ying scolded. Silence fell once more upon the crowd. Chapter 046 Anything else? After a long while, those who had recovered their strength using spirit stones rose one by one from their seated positions.
I'm so hungry, everyone cried out, their eyes quickly falling upon the corpses of the spirit beasts. Under the direction of Pantao and Zheng Rui, they built a fire, cut the meat from the spirit beasts into chunks, strung them onto branches,
and roasted them over the flames. Before long, a tempting aroma wafted from the charred, cooked meat. The starving group devoured the food, gobbling it down greedily, filling their bellies with the spirit beast meat, so fragrant.
Much more tender and delicious than the food at home. Spirit beast meat isn't so easy to come by. Everyone's had their fill this time. Surrounding the fire, they tore at the chunks of meat, their mouths smeared with graze,
their faces alight with satisfied smiles. At that moment, only An Ying, whose strength had been most depleted, and Nie Tian, who was still asleep, hadn't recovered and were unable to enjoy the feast. There are plenty of spirit beasts here.
Let's roast some for An Ying and Nie Tian too, so they can eat as soon as they wake up, Pantao instructed, gnawing on a greasy leg of beast. Oh, someone replied, Tao, what's gotten into you? Why are you always looking out for that kid? Zheng Rui,
using a small knife to slice the meat with affected elegance, asked. Have you forgotten we almost fought him? The other young men, equally puzzled by Pantao's protectiveness towards Nie Tian, looked over. Things have changed. Pantao's expression turned serious.
When the earth-walking lizard attacked Zhang Miao, I was the first to notice and helped her escape. From that moment on, he's one of us, regardless of his identity outside, in the green illusion realm. I want you to treat him as a comrade.
We might face even greater dangers ahead. If we harbor resentment and distrust each other, we might not survive the green illusion realm. His words were delivered with righteous conviction. Pantao's right, and Ying, opening her eyes, chimed in,
giving Pantao an approving glance before turning to scold Zheng Rui. Learn something from Pantao, don't be so petty. This trip to the green illusion realm has shown me that Pantao is capable and far stronger than I ever imagined.
Pantao lowered his head slightly, a little uneasy, and quickly said, Don't say that. I just think unity is paramount. Zheng Rui, the one who had been scolded, felt a surge of resentment. He thought to himself, before we came in,
weren't you the one secretly instructing us to teach Nie Tian a lesson in the green illusionary realm? He woke up too. At that moment, Zhang Miao, with her doll-like face, noticed that Nie Tian had also opened his eyes. Go and give him some food.
And Yin, in small hand, as clear and jade-like as could be, unceremoniously snatched a large piece of browned, cooked meat from Zheng Ru's hand. With a bold gesture, she shoved it into her mouth and took a large, satisfying bite. Zheng Rui,
why are you acting like a girl? This is the green illusionary realm, not the Lingbao Pavilion. It's just food. Do you need to be so delicate with knives and forks? She mumbled indistinctly. With her words,
the affectedly elegant Zheng Ru felt embarrassed and put away his small knife. At that moment, Zhang Mi also grabbed a piece of roasted meat from a frost-armored rhinoceros and came to Nie Tian's side. For you, Zhang Miao offered timidly. Oh, thank you. Nie Tian, still a little groggy from sleep, took the meat and immediately devoured it. The chunk of cooked meat, at least 5 jin, vanished into Nie Tian's mouth in a remarkably short time, leaving not a trace behind. Zhang Miao watched. Even after swallowing a large piece of meat, Nie Tian felt nothing, remaining intensely hungry. Any more? He asked Zhang Miao. Zhang Miao nodded, hastily replying, yes, there's plenty more. With that, she rushed to where An Ying and the others were and brought back an even larger piece of cooked meat. Nie Tian didn't hesitate, taking it and consuming the over 8 jin piece of meat with the same incredible speed. A warm current gradually rose from his abdomen. He focused his attention and sensed it carefully, his eyes suddenly lighting up. As he carefully examined the sensation, he discovered that the warmth seemed to originate from the meat he had just eaten.
The meat came from a first-rate spirit beast that had died only recently, unlike the meat had eaten in Black Cloud City. The spiritual energy cultivated by these spirit beasts had been completely transformed into nutrients for their powerful bodies.
The spirit beast meat clearly contained strands of energy. He could evidently absorb this energy, dispersing it throughout his internal organs to enhance the strength of his physique. This was an experience unlike any head had eating meat before.
Get me some more, he said excitedly to Zhongmiao. Bring a lot more this time. I have a huge appetite. I can eat as much as 5 of them. Look, we're all about the same age, but I'm taller and stronger, right? That's because I can eat more than them.
Your appetite is really something else, Zhang Miao muttered under her breath, but still obediently went to Ying to get him more cooked meat. No way. Tong Hao looked at Zhang Miao, snatching a large piece of freshly cooked meat he'd just finished grilling,
and exclaimed, "You're getting that much cooked meat, will he even finish it all? He's already eaten all the previous ones," Zhang Miao explained. The moment those words were spoken, everyone gathered there looked at Nie Tian with strange expressions.
They hadn't noticed Nie Tian just now, nor did they know that in a short time, he had devoured enough meat for at least 4 people. Their eyes widened as they watched Zhang Miao hand Nie Tian a 10 jins approximately 5g chunk of cooked meat. Nie Tian,
ignoring them, proceeded to tear the astonishingly large piece of meat apart and gobble it down right before their eyes. "Is this guy a bottomless pit?" Zheng Rui exclaimed, and Ying and Pantao were also shocked by Nian's appetite, their expressions strange.
Energized, eagerly watched Nie Tian. "Are you full? Do you want more?" A little more," Nie Tian said weakly. "Ah!" Zhang Miao and Ying screamed in unison. The others looked at Nie Tian with completely changed expressions.
"Classifying him as a human monster, is there any more?" Nie Tian whispered. The gazes of the crowd made him feel a little embarrassed, but he truly wasn't full yet. He didn't know why. But after that mental and spiritual overdraft, he was unusually hungry.
His appetite exceeding his usual by a large margin. Moreover, as he devoured the chunks of cooked meat from the spirit beasts, he distinctly felt more and more wisps of energy emanating from his abdomen, gradually diffusing into his flesh, bones,
and internal organs. After eating ravenously for a while, he experienced a wondrous sensation of growing stronger. He didn't want to stop this delightful feeling, he wanted it to continue. "Yes!" Responding to him wasn't the stunned Zhang Miao but Pantao.
Already full, Pantao strode over with a large chunk of meat in his hand, offering it to Nie Tian amidst the shocked stares of the crowd. Thanks." Nie Tian accepted it and resumed his voracious eating. This time,
he didn't devour the equally enormous piece of cooked meat in the same short amount of time as before. Midway through his meal, he finally slowed down, yet that piece of cooked meat, which looked rather terrifying to everyone else,
slowly disappeared into his mouth. "That's enough full," Nie Tian chuckled dryly, avoiding the incredulous expressions on everyone's faces. "I'm a bit sleepy. Do what you want." "Amazing," Pantao said in admiration.
And Ying also wore a shocked expression, muttering to herself, "Large appetite, does that count as one of the strange things sister mentioned?" Closing his eyes, Nie Tian held his breath, slowly adjusting his breathing.
He ignored the strange looks from the others and focused on investigating the unusual changes within his body. Once he calmed down and focused, he would habitually circulate the Liangqi Ju to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy for cultivation.
The moment he activated the Liangqi Ju, he suddenly discovered that the warm currents from his abdomen seemed to be drawn in by the Liangqi Ju, frantically converging towards his Danshin, chapter 47, an exceedingly pleasant life.
The Liangqi Ju is merely the most basic spiritual technique. Not only did the younger generation of the Nie family cultivate this technique, but almost all children in the Q condensation realm cultivated Q condensation techniques from a young age.
This was a simple and easy to understand technique used to build a foundation for children. Before entering the acquired realm, the youths of Lingbao Pavilion, Lingyan Sect, Grey Valley, and Xuanhuan Palace all primarily cultivated Q condensation technique.
Such a simple and common technique should not be overly miraculous. However, when Nie Tian circulated the Q condensation technique this time, he felt a slight warmth rapidly converging towards the spiritual sea in his Danshin. After his previous slumber,
his spirit and energy had fully recovered. Through introspection of his consciousness, he clearly felt that his spirit sea was slowly expanding. In his spiritual perception, the spirit sea was a chaotic mass of clouds and mist. Within that cloud of mist,
pure spiritual energy swirled. When needed, he could draw it from the spirit sea, channeling it through his meridians to any part of his body, transforming it into various miraculous spiritual techniques. The spirit sea was the source of power for cultivators,
the reason for their strength, and the greatest difference between cultivators and ordinary mortals. For cultivators at the Q condensation realm, cultivation meant continuously absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into the spirit sea,
allowing the cloud-like spirit sea to gradually expand. The spirit sea could be considered a container for storing spiritual energy. The larger the spirit sea, the more spiritual energy it could contain, and the more power a cultivator could command generally.
Only when the spirit sea was full of spiritual energy, unable to refine any more spiritual energy, could a cultivator use additional spiritual energy from heaven and earth to expand the spirit sea, upgrading this container to make it larger.
Thus capable of holding more spiritual energy. In the past, when absorbing spiritual energy from heaven and earth into the spirit sea to expand it, he had never felt any changes in the spirit sea.
Because the amount of spiritual energy refined in a single cultivation session was extremely limited, the expansion and transformation of the spirit sea were negligible. Normally,
it would take him a month of diligent cultivation to even slightly sense an increase in his spiritual sea's capacity. Cultivation is measured in years. Each minor breakthrough in the Q condensation realm requires at least a year.
Those with insufficient diligence or talent often require several years to break through a minor realm. Originally, he could only perceive a change in spiritual sea after a month of cultivation. Now, by merging those warm currents into his spiritual sea,
like spiritual sea slowly expanding outwards, his spiritual sea was clearly undergoing transformation and expansion. Moreover, he could clearly perceive this slow expansion process.
This was a magical experience he had never had before. The beast's flesh contained power. That power was the result of the beast refining the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, purifying it to its essence before it permeated its flesh and blood. That power
was far more concentrated and substantial than ordinary spiritual energy. The beast's flesh was an incredible tonic. Not only was it effective in refining my body, but it also helped me expand my spirit sea,
dramatically increasing my cultivation speed. He quickly realized this and, using the most basic Q refining technique, absorbed the power generated in his abdomen from the beast's flesh into his spirit sea, after an unknown amount of time.
When he could no longer feel any power dissipating from his abdomen, he stopped cultivating. However, this cultivation session had expanded his spirit sea by a tenth. He was currently at the 6th level of Q refining.
At his normal cultivation speed in the Nie family, it would have taken him a month and a half to achieve this. To break through to the 7th level of Q refining, his spirit sea needed to double in size, capable of holding twice the spiritual energy.
If he had continued cultivating in the Nie family, even with relentless daily practice, it would have taken him at least a year and a half to reach the 7th level. Yet, after just one extravagant meal of beast meat and a single cultivation session,
his spirit sea had expanded by 10%, equivalent to a month and a half of diligent cultivation in the Nie family. Coming to the Azure illusionary realm was the right choice. Before coming here he had no clear direction.
Only seeing the Azure illusionary realm as a trial of self, he had assumed that the spiritual energy in the Azure illusion realm was scarce, and that his frequent battles with spirit beasts would leave his spiritual sea in a perpetually depleted state.
He hadn't considered improving his cultivation within the Azure illusion realm. Only now, upon discovering that the flesh of these spirit beasts significantly accelerated his cultivation, did he finally find direction.
Realizing the immense benefit of the Azure illusion realm's trials, after recovering and resting, Ying and her group pressed deeper into the glacial region, attempting to slay the Xuanhuan giant python. Unfortunately,
the Xuanhuan giant python seemed to have vanished. They searched the glacial region for over 10 days without finding a trace of it. During this time, however, they encountered several scattered level 1 spirit beasts.
These level 1 spirit beasts were all slain under their combined assault. The tender and delicious meat of the spirit beasts became their sustenance, shared amongst them. A single frost-armored rhinoceros could weigh several hundred, even over 1,000 jin.
Without Qin Shun and Zhu Fang, only 13 remained. These 13 could only consume at most 100 jin of meat per meal.
It was impossible for each of them to carry 100 kilograms of meat around while searching for the Xuanhuan giant python under such a heavy burden. Moreover, they managed to kill new spirit beasts at intervals.
This allowed Nie Tian to consume an enormous amount of beast meat every day. Once he realized that spirit beast meat aided his cultivation and could improve his realm, his terrifying appetite truly exploded. Each day,
the amount of spirit beast meat he consumed alone was enough to equal the combined consumption of the other 12. These past few days, all he did was devour the leftover spirit beast meat that the others couldn't finish. Whatever he couldn't eat,
he carried as much as possible, so he could continue his binge eating if they didn't encounter any new spirit beasts. And Ying and the others were too lazy to carry large amounts of spirit beast meat, as they could likely capture more in their next battle.
Of course, if their luck was exceptionally bad and they couldn't find any spirit beasts for a day or two, they would naturally need food. Thus, Nie Tian naturally became the one who carried the dried spirit beast meat rations for everyone. At this point,
Nie Tian's astonishing carrying capacity gradually became known to everyone. Carrying hundreds of catties of spirit beast meat on his back, he kept pace with them without the slightest sign of strain. his steps as swift as ever.
Unaware of the reason behind his effortless strength, they were quite satisfied with Nie Tian's diligence and willingness to work. They felt that having someone handle logistics for them, carrying enough food for everyone to last several days,
wasn't so bad after all. Even Tonghao and the others, who had previously harbored resentment towards Nie Tian, ceased their hostile glares when, after several days of encountering no spirit beasts and feeling the pangs of hunger,
they discovered the mountain of spirit beast meat on Nie Tian's back. This is amazing! This trip to the Green Illusion Realm might be the happiest experience of my life. My spirit sea expanded by another 10 cent in total.
Its expansion since entering has reached a staggering 90 cent. 2 more days! Just 2 more days, and it'll break through to the Q condensation 7th layer. Every day, Nie Tian reveled in immense joy, secretly thrilled within. How?
He could clearly feel his own progress, carrying hundreds of caddies of spirit beast meat. This astonishing weight was in itself a refinement of his mortal body. He knew that, for his physique, bearing such a weight was just right for cultivation.
While carrying hundreds of catties, tempering his flesh, he simultaneously consumed spirit beast meat to transform his spirit sea and strengthen his body, making this period of time quite enjoyable. He even wanted to remain in this state forever.
The Xuanhuan giant python, the earth-traveling lizard, the trials of the Xuanhuan realm. The rewards from the outside world, none of it mattered to him anymore, because he felt himself growing stronger every moment that day.
As An Ying and the others sat around a bonfire, chatting animatedly 10 meters away, Nie Tian, who had been sitting upright and circulating his key refining technique, shuddered violently. When he opened his eyes, they were filled with ecstatic joy.
7th layer, Chapter 48, The Shadow of the Ghost Sect. After wandering in the glacial region for more than 10 days, still unable to track down the Xuanhuan giant python, An Ying finally grew anxious.
13 people sticking together to hunt the Xuanhuan giant python wasn't exactly a smart idea. In the time they'd spent in this glacial region, they'd hunted down most of the low-level, first-order spirit beast for the past few days.
They'd been hard-pressed to find any more to improve their efficiency. And Ying made a bold decision they would split up. She, Pan Tao, and Zheng Rui all hailed from the Lingbao Pavilion. They each possessed signal sticks capable of transmitting messages
within a 10-li radius. As long as they released a signal, the others would be able to see it. Therefore, after discussing with Pan Tao and Zheng Rui, she decided that the 3 of them would each lead a team.
Conducting a thorough search for the Xuanhuan giant python within a 10-li radius, Zheng Rui, the weakest of the 3, chose 4 team members first, while she and Pan Tao each took 3, and they set off in different directions. Ne Jiang Miao
and a young boy named Gu Qi were assigned to Pan Tao's team. Under Pan Tao's lead, the 4 of them chose a direction and set off, separating from An Ying and Zheng Rui. As usual, Nie Tian, carrying a large amount of spirit beast meat, followed Pan Tao's team.
Spending his days gorging himself during his breaks, he immediately used the key refinement technique to continue expanding his spiritual sea. In just over 10 days, he had leaped from the 6th to the 7th layer of Q refinement.
A success that greatly encouraged him. To advance from the 7th to the 8th layer, he needed to double the size of his spiritual sea, which had already been doubled. This time, he set a 2-month goal for himself.
He planned to reach the 8th layer of key refinement within 2 months, aided by the spirit beast meat. As for searching for the Xuanhuan giant python, he showed little interest, devoting himself entirely to cultivation. It's been a day and a half.
We should be about 7 li away from An Ying and the others, but we haven't encountered a single low-level spirit beast. Pan Tao, having meticulously searched every ice cave in the small glacier, held his timer, his expression despondent. Tao,
maybe there just aren't any spirit beasts in this area, Gu Qi said. I wonder how sister An Ying and brother Zheng are doing. Zhang Miao whispered softly. The 4 of them sat beside the small glacier, their spirits sagging from their lack of progress.
They must not have found the coiled Xuanhuan giant python either. Otherwise, they would have sent a signal by now. Pan Tao sighed, shaking his head. We've wasted too much time in this glacial region.
Perhaps the Lingyan sect and Xuanwu Palace have already taken down the other 2 level 2 spirit beasts. Taoj, Yuan Feng and his men from Grey Valley entered the depths of the glacier ahead of us.
We've been wandering around for over 10 days and haven't encountered them. Isn't that a little strange? Gu Qi added. Nothing strange about it. Pan Tao shook his head. This glacial region is actually quite vast. If Yuan Feng and his men
were also sticking together searching for the Xuanhuan giant python, the chances of us meeting them are slim. Unless they also split up and roamed within a certain range. Only then would the chances of encountering each other significantly increase.
Gu Qi thought for a moment, then nodded. That's true. Nie Tian, do you have any good ideas? Pan Tao suddenly asked. Nie Tian, who had been sitting to the side silently eating meat, slightly raised his head, his mouth smeared with grease.
If you guys can't find it, what good ideas could I possibly have? He responded languidly. since he learned that spirit beast meat could significantly accelerate his cultivation speed. He had lost all interest in searching for the Xuanbing giant python.
His laziness and unconcerned attitude were noticed by all three. Among the three, Zheng Miao had been saved by him, and Pan Tao, knowing his extraordinary abilities, didn't say anything more. Only Guqi had repeatedly expressed his dissatisfaction,
demanding that Pan Tao control Nie Tian and stop him from being so idle, spending all day eating. Pan Tao simply dismissed Guqi's requests with a laugh, paying them no heed. You two go over there, I want to have a few words with Nie Tian alone.
Pan Tao pointed in a direction. Guqi's eyes flickered. Thinking Pan Tao was about to reprimand Nie Tian privately, he chuckled, pulling Zheng Miao away. Once they were gone, Pan Tao approached Nie Tian, letting out a wry smile before speaking. Nie Tian,
I need your help. Tian was speechless. Don't let my background fool you, Pan Tao said, his face falling. My time at the Lingbao Pavilion hasn't been as rosy as you might think. People like Zhang Ri and me were not exactly welcomed.
No matter how hard we work, they say we only achieve this because of our family connections. The old geezers in the pavilion admire those like An Ying, he continued, those who rose from humble family backgrounds and were eventually brought in. But
I've always been looked down upon, underestimated. Nie Tian paused, then said, everyone has their own difficulties. You mind being judged, but do you know how hard it is for us to even get into places like Lingyun sect and your Lingbao Pavilion? Of course I do.
Pan Tao nodded, but your efforts will be recognized, people will see them. No matter how hard I try, it's always attributed to my ancestors' help, never my own accomplishments. The Xuanhuan realm trials are crucial to me, he said earnestly.
To make them see me differently. Nie Tian sighed, a look of helplessness on his face. All right, tell me, how do you want me to help? Pan Tao's expression tightened. If you could find the earthcrawler deep underground,
then you should be able to find the Xuanbing giant python using the same method. In my opinion, the Xuanbing giant python, like the earthcrawler, is likely hidden in places we can't see. I don't think we can find it with our eyes.
I hope you'll use the same method you used to find the earthcrawler to search for the Xuanbing giant python. The glacial region is so vast, and without a general idea of its location, it's going to be extremely difficult to find it.
Nie Tian said with a wry smile, hesitating before continuing. Fine, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and try. But if it doesn't work, don't blame me. Of course, Pan Tao hastily replied. Next, Nie Tian calmed himself.
Rhythm, and attempted to disperse his spiritual awareness. His wisps of spiritual awareness extended outwards, centering on himself. Strand after strand of spiritual awareness, like invisible tendrils, reached farther and farther,
covering a 40-meter radius around him. After a while he warily opened his eyes, shook his head at Pan Tao, and said there's nothing nearby anyway. Then let's change locations, Pan Tao exclaimed. Let me rest a while. Tian chuckled wryly. Good.
Pan Tao readily agreed. For a period of time afterward, Nie Tian followed Pan Tao and the other two, truly putting in the effort, constantly using his spiritual awareness to perceive his surroundings.
Every time he exhausted his spiritual awareness, he felt incredibly fatigued, but after sleeping he quickly recovered. Gradually, he discovered that after overextending his spiritual awareness,
his spiritual power would often increase slightly upon the next recovery. Initially, his range of perception was limited to within 40 meters. Later, as his spiritual power gradually increased, the range he could perceive expanded to over 50 meters.
This discovery untied the knot in his heart. A knot that had been there because he was so unwilling to help Pan Tao search for the Xuanbing giant python.
He began to view the arduous task of helping Pan Tao search for the Xuanbing giant python as cultivation of his spiritual power. Guqi and Zhang Miao were unaware of the tacit understanding between Pan Tao and Nie Tian.
Every time they reached a new location, when Pan Tao saw Nie Tian close his eyes, then open them again after a while and shake his head, Pan Tao would immediately abandon that area and search elsewhere. Guqi and Zhang Miao were utterly baffled.
Wondering what the two were secretly up to, they asked Pan Tao, but he wouldn't say, telling them not to be suspicious. In the end, they all gave up, their confidence in finding the Xuanbing giant python dwindling with each passing day. That day,
Nie Tian once again engaged in the perception of his spiritual consciousness. An incredibly faint life fluctuation suddenly registered in his mind, causing him to snap his eyes open. Pan Tao, his hope dwindling, had ceased to harbor any illusions yet.
When he looked at Tian this time, he found that Nie Tian wasn't shaking his head as he always did. What? Have you discovered something? He asked, his voice trembling. It wasn't the Xuanbing python, it was something else, standing.
Nie Tian pointed in a direction. It should be people. Pan Tao was clearly disappointed, but he still followed Nie Tian's instructions, leading the three of them towards the indicated location. A strong stench of blood emanated from behind the ice trees.
They moved past the trees and saw two Grey Valley youths, their bodies soaked in blood, lying on the icy ground. One of them, a short sword protruding from his neck, was already dead. The other was covered in crisscrossing wounds.
Blood flowing relentlessly from them, blood froth from his mouth. He'd clearly lost too much blood and was near death. As Pan Tao arrived, his vacant gaze flickered momentarily before rapidly losing all color. He was dead too. Pan Tao's face.
Stepping forward, he lowered his head and saw at a glance that the thumbs of both men had been severed by a sharp blade. Pan Tao's face went pale with shock, his voice unsteady. The ghost sect. This is the ghost sect's handiwork. Damn it.
How did people from the ghost sect get into the Xuanhuan realm? Nie Tian looked utterly bewildered. What's going on? Pan Tao didn't answer. Instead, he cautiously scanned his surroundings, then lowered his voice to a whisper. Let's go back the way we came. Oh.
Now equally tense, followed him, treading lightly as they retraced their steps. Pan Tao remained grim-faced and silent throughout the journey, focusing solely on getting them back. After a long time, when he felt they were safe,
he ignited a signal flare. The flare shot into the sky, transforming into a straight plume of black smoke that lingered for a long time. Half a day later, Ying and Zheng Rui rushed over, their faces alight with excitement. Pan Tao!
Have you found the Xuanhuan giant python? And Ying shouted excitedly from afar. As they drew closer, Pan Tao shook his head, his face ashen. We didn't encounter the Xuanhuan giant python, but we discovered traces of the ghost sect. Impossible.
This is absolutely impossible, Zheng Rui shrieked. Ying was shocked. Pan Tao, are you joking? This is the Xuanhuan realm, a private realm belonging to our Lingbao pavilion, and we're in the midst of trials. How could anyone from the ghost sect get in here?
Pan Tao roared, and Ying and Zheng Rui's faces were filled with terror at his words. Chapter 49 Another Death. Ghost sect. Nie Tian furrowed his brows, secretly observing Ying and Zheng Rui, his heart filled with questions.
This was the first time he had truly left Black Cloud City. Before this, he had been cultivating in the Nie family in Black Cloud City. Growing up, all he'd heard about was the Lingyan sect. The ghost sect was a completely new and unheard of sect to him.
He knew nothing about the ghost sect, and couldn't understand why Pan Tao and the other two from the Lingbao pavilion were so terrified upon learning of the ghost sect's presence in the green illusion realm. Like him,
most of the youths from the 7 cities had no impression of the ghost sect, and all looked puzzled. Only 2 young men, seemingly having learned from their elders, knew the origins of the ghost sect.
Upon hearing that members of the ghost sect had also entered the azure illusionary realm, their faces turned pale, their eyes instantly filling with terror. They were clearly far more afraid of the ghost sect than Ying and the others.
Many of you may never have heard of the ghost sect, so I need to explain. Pan Tao looked at Nie Tian, took a deep breath, his expression grave. We, along with Lingyan sect, Grey Valley, and Xuanhuan Palace, belong to the same Q Refinement Alliance.
The ghost sect and Prison Palace, however, come from a rival Qi Refinement Alliance. The ghost sect, blood sect, and Prison Palace, their combined strength is in no way inferior to ours. For centuries, we've clashed with them countless times,
both openly and secretly, fighting over the ownership of the secret realm and spirit mines. Throughout these long years, we've never truly triumphed over them. Our strengths are roughly equal. Pausing, Pan Tao continued.
Our 4 sects engage in clandestine battles among ourselves, but everything remains controlled generally. There are no significant casualties, however. Every major conflict between our 4 sects and them results in countless deaths.
Not just among lower-ranked members, but even our powerful elders could perish. The 2 sides are locked in a bitter feud. Any encounter inevitably leads to a fight to the death. This time,
since members of the ghost sect have come to the azure illusionary realm, I suspect their aim is to annihilate us. Their target is clearly not the spirit beasts, but us. Only when we're all dead will they leave the green illusionary realm. After those words,
all the trial participants, including Nie Tian, fell silent. Everyone's face turned grim and unpleasant. The green illusionary realm, with the ghost sect's appearance, seemed to have suddenly transformed into a bloody battlefield. Sister Ying.
We should return to the secret realm gate and tell your sister that the ghost sect has entered the green illusionary realm, Zheng Miao timidly suggested. The other youths, also terrified by the news of the ghost sect's arrival, quickly nodded in agreement.
Going back is useless, Ying shook her head, extinguishing their hopes with a single sentence. After everyone enters, the secret realm gate temporarily seals itself. This is to prevent cheating.
To stop anyone from secretly entering the green illusionary realm to help you. Only when the trial ends. After the 6-month period is up, will the exit gate reopen. During this time, we're completely isolated from the outside world. We can't get out.
And they can't get in. That means, no matter what happens in the green illusionary realm, we have to stay for 6 months. Then aren't we doomed? Goki cried out in despair. No one knows how many people from the ghost sect have come,
or what their cultivation levels are. If they're at the acquired or innate stages, they can definitely kill us all within 6 months. We probably won't survive. We'll all be cruelly tortured to death by the ghost sect. Don't worry too much.
And Ying inwardly scoffed at their lack of courage, but still had to reassure them. The disciples of the ghost sect, blood sect, and prison palace, though cruel, bloodthirsty, and ruthless, were also incredibly arrogant.
They knew that in each trial of the Azure illusionary realm, the participants from the 4 sects were all at the Q condensation stage. Given their usual arrogance,
those they sent to the Azure illusionary realm were most likely sect juniors at the same cultivation level as us. At the same level, they might have richer combat experience, having truly been baptized by blood, but in terms of strength,
they should be comparable to us. As long as the numbers aren't too disparate, we're not necessarily the ones being hunted. Goku was stunned and said, "You mean those guys from the ghost sect are also at the Q condensation stage, just like us?" "I guess so."
And Ying nodded. Goku breathed a sigh of relief, his courage swelling. He scoffed. "We're all at the same level. What are we afraid of?" "Sister and Ying, I saw your faces weren't looking good just now."
"I thought the ghost sect would send foundation establishment or core formation experts." "Heh, it was all you 3, scaring us half to death." He feigned ease. Hearing Goku say this, the others seemed to relax as well.
After his initial nervousness quickly calmed down, thinking, if it's just the Q condensation stage, the ghost sect might not be so terrifying after all. Only An Ying, Pan Tao and Zheng Rui remained utterly unrelaxed. They exchanged a glance,
each seeing the bitterness reflected in the other's eyes. They were the only ones who truly understood the terrifying nature of the ghost sect, the blood sect, and the prison palace. Each disciple of these 3 sects had grown up amidst slaughter and bloodshed,
each considering murder as commonplace, as ordinary as eating, drinking, and sleeping. Even those from the Lingbao Pavilion were far from adequate in practical combat, relying only on spiritual weapons to compensate for their shortcomings.
As for Gucci and those from subordinate families, they believed that once they engaged in battle with the ghost sect disciples, they would likely suffer a complete mental breakdown from the opponent's bloody and brutal methods.
Those individuals were all greenhouse flowers, having never experienced the ravages of storms and winds. The reason the 4 sects organized the Xuanhuan realm trial was precisely because they knew these disciples severely lacked combat experience.
It was a preemptive sharpening, meant to allow them to gradually adapt to future bloody battles. However, before they had even finished the Xuanhuan realm trial, they were to face the murderously inclined disciples of the ghost sect.
This was far too cruel for them, and Ying and the other 2 exchanged a look. They decided against further elaborating on the horrors of the ghost sect, fearing it would demoralize and cripple their fighting spirit. Tap, tap, tap. At that very moment,
the sound of approaching footsteps suddenly echoed from afar, and Ying's face turned pale. She slapped her head, exclaiming in remorse, "Damn it, I forgot to leave." She glanced at the sky.
Nie Tian looked up at the lingering black mist in the air and immediately understood. The signal Pan Tao had released formed a straight column of black mist that shot into the sky. And Ying and Zheng Rui could see it, and so could others.
Anyone within a 10-mile radius, looking towards the sky, could see the dense fog still hanging there. After An Ying and the others gathered,
they were so engrossed in discussing the horrors of the ghost sect that they failed to leave immediately. "A grave mistake! Lingbao Pavilion! It's you!" A young man, clad in grey, clearly from Grey Valley, his body covered in blood,
clutching a broken slender sword, arrived in a panic. His face was filled with fear and hatred. Upon seeing An Ying and the others, he seemed to see salvation, letting out a cry of joyous relief. "Save me! We were attacked by the ghost sect."
"My 2 teammates are dead. Only I escaped." He ran towards them, occasionally glancing behind him, as if the ghost sect pursuers were right on his heels. "How many ghost sect disciples are chasing you?" And Ying shouted. 3, right behind me. Everyone be careful."
The gray-clothed youth, his steps faltering, stumbled past An Ying, Pan Tao, and Zheng Rui, and plunged into the group with Nie Tian. At that moment, everyone was stunned by his words.
Their eyes nervously fixed on the direction he'd come from. It felt as if, at any moment, 3 ghost sect disciples would burst forth from there. "No!" Nie Tian roared, without hesitation, immediately attacking the grey-clothed youth. His fist,
imbued with powerful spiritual energy, smashed towards the youth, forcing the boy, whose eyes had previously shown panic but now held a cunning glint, to hastily retreat. "What are you doing?" Guqi, closest to the youth, abruptly changed expression.
Glaring fiercely, "I know you have a feud with Yuan Feng and the others. But now that the ghost sect has appeared, you must put aside your hatred. He's already badly injured, and you still try to take advantage of him. You don't know shit!"
Ignoring him completely, and charged towards the boy from Grey Valley. "Goki, you almost fucking died. You're the one who almost died." Gochi retorted angrily. At that moment, the boy from Grey Valley, evading Nie Tian's attack,
reached the side of another man, and plunged his broken sword forward. The man was completely unaware, staring blankly at the boy from Grey Valley, unable to react in time. By the time he realized something was wrong,
The boy from Grey Valley's broken sword had already pierced his chest cavity, emerging from his back. Hee. The Grey Valley boy grinned savagely. After the killing, he merely glanced at Nie Tian before flashing away into the distance, without lingering.
Huang Ye was dead! He killed Huang Ye! Only now did everyone react, their cries of alarm ringing out, and Ying and the other two had been focused on the direction from which the Grey Valley youth had come.
Their faces grim as they waited for the 3 ghost sect disciples to appear. By the time they heard Goki and Nie Tian arguing and turned to look, it was too late. As a ghost sect disciple, Pan Tao finally realized. Haha!
None of you will leave the Xuanhuan realm alive! The youth, swiftly retreating, taunted arrogantly. Just you wait, we'll kill you all, one by one. Next time when I appear again, I won't be alone. Whoosh! Like a wisp of green smoke,
He flitted through the icy trees, quickly disappearing from sight. Goki was drenched in cold sweat, looking at Nie Tian's frosty face. He didn't know how to speak, but he knew in his heart that the young man had been closest to him just now.
If Nie Tian hadn't suddenly attacked, the young man wouldn't have dodged, he would have attacked him. As Nie Tian said, he had almost died just now. It's because I have a feud with Yuan Feng and the others, so when they demanded you hand someone over,
I memorized each of their faces. Nie Tian's eyes were cold. I clearly remember each of their faces, and I'll settle the score with them one by one later. And that person. Sorry. I was wrong. Goki hung his head.
Chapter Alud 5 Cast a shadow. Damn it, there's only one of him and he dares to be so arrogant. Chase him down, kill him, and avenge Hong Ye! After things became clear, Tong Hao, furious,
was the first to chase after the ghost sect disciple in the direction he fled. The 2 disciples near him seemed to have a good relationship with Huang Ye. At this moment, grief-stricken, they immediately followed. Don't pursue! All of you come back!
And Ying shouted to stop them. Tong Hao, at the forefront, turned his head, showing his displeasure towards Ying for the first time. Why, are we just going to watch Huang Ye be killed and do nothing? You can't catch them, Pan Tao interjected.
Ghost sect disciples are masters of escape and concealment, as elusive as ghosts. Even if Ying and I went after them, it would be useless. Let's bury Hong Ye first. An equally despondent, that ghost sect disciple,
simply by wearing the clothes of Grey Valley, had successfully deceived them all. If Nie Tian hadn't remembered the face of every Grey Valley arrival and immediately attacked, the disciple could have easily killed 2 more in a short time. As the leader,
her failure to notice had led to Huang Ye's death, a fact that weighed heavily on her conscience. Listen to her. Bury Huang Ye first. Don't waste your energy chasing after them, Pan Tao urged Tong Hao and the others.
You don't understand the ghost sect well enough. If you pursue them, once you're separated, I worry about you. Clearly, he didn't want Tong Hao and the others to suffer the same fate as Huang Ye. At that moment, Nie Tian, his expression calm,
stared in the direction from which the ghost sect disciple had come. Where he came from, there must be others killed from Grey Valley. That's likely. Pan Tao agreed. He was wearing Grey Valley clothing. Shall we go and investigate? Nie Tian suggested.
Pan Tao's expression flickered. He nodded and said to Ying, Nie Tian and I will go take a look. Whether we find anything or not, we'll be back soon. There shouldn't be more ghost sect disciples nearby, otherwise he wouldn't have come alone.
Ying pondered for a moment before replying. Be careful, we won't go far, Pan Tao assured her. Then, he and Nie Tian left the group and headed towards the spot where the ghost sect disciple had appeared. After they left, Zhang Miao suddenly spoke. Nie Tian.
Actually, he's been pretty good. Although he seems to only eat and drink, he's always been incredibly observant during crucial moments. Without him, I would have died when we encountered the earth-burrowing lizard. She then looked at Guqi.
And he just saved. He lowered his head, saying apologetically, I was wrong to misjudge him. Nie Tian, and Ying murmured, nodding slightly. His perception is undeniably superior to ours. Without his warning,
that ghost sect disciple could have killed at least 1 or 2 more people. Not handing him over to the Grey Valley people seems to have been the right decision. He really has helped us, Zhang Miao added. The rest showed shame.
As if only now could they rationally assess Nie Tian. Nie Tian, the subject of their hushed whispers, carefully searched the path taken by the ghost sect disciple. The disciple had deliberately created the illusion of being drenched in blood,
leaving a trail of crimson droplets in his wake. Following the bloodstains, Nie Tian and Pan Tao easily located the scene of the crime. The battlefield lay within a snow-covered valley a little over a mile away. 2 Grey Valley trial participants lay dead,
their lives brutally extinguished. One of them, a 14 or 15-year-old girl, was naked. Pan Tao glanced at the scene, his face turning cold. He murmured to Nie Tian, she was violated before she died. Nie Tian's eyes darkened,
forcing himself not to look at the girl's horrific state. That ghost sect bastard deserves to die. Their thumbs have also been cut off. Pan Tao sighed, a confirmation of the ghost sect's signature brutality.
He dug a shallow grave in the ice and buried the bodies. 10 people from Grey Valley entered the Xuanhuan realm, Pantao said, his brow furrowed after completing the grim task. But we've already found 4 dead. There might be more.
We just haven't encountered them yet. It seems Grey Valley has suffered heavy losses. I wonder if Yuan Feng is still alive. The appearance of one ghost sect member in this glacial area means others are likely nearby, Nie Tian said after a moment of hesitation.
I think we should rendezvous with the Xuanhuan Palace and Lingyan sect disciples as soon as possible. We need to combine our forces to deal with the ghost sect. We have no idea how many of them are lurking in this glacial region. Well,
since the ghost sect has appeared, the trial of slaying a level 2 spirit beast becomes insignificant. Pantao agreed with this suggestion. Let's go back and tell Anying about our discovery.
We should leave this glacial region as soon as possible and try to rendezvous with Xuanhuan Palace and Lingyan sect. That's best. The two reached a consensus and returned along the original path, soon arriving where Anying and the others were. What did you find?
Zheng Rui asked anxiously. In a snow-capped valley, we found 2 more corpses from the Grey Valley. Those 2, they died even worse. I won't go into detail, Pantao casually recounted, turning to the grave-faced Anying and saying, Nie Tian and I discussed it.
And we feel we should stay in this glacial region for long, as we don't know how many people from the ghost sect are here. To rendezvous with Xuanhuan Palace and Lingyan sect. Right, Anying nodded while you were gone.
We discussed it and came to the same decision. Let's prepare and immediately traverse this glacial region to the desert where the earth-traveling lizards are.
Xuanhuan Palace and Lingyan sect don't know that the earth-traveling lizards have been here. They might very well have gone to the desert to slay them. Let's go find them. Anying said. Everyone echoed in agreement. Huang Ye's death
and the gruesome deaths of the 4 Grey Valley trial participants instilled a fear of the ghost sect within them. No one knew how many ghost sect members were here. If they accidentally encountered a large ghost sect force, they could all be slaughtered.
Joining forces with the other 3 sects, combining the strength of the 4 sects to fight the ghost sect disciples, was undoubtedly the wisest decision. Let's go! Anying issued the order, her voice heavy with dejection. Afterward, the group dared not separate.
Proceeding in a straight line across the desert in the direction she indicated. There's a body. Another from Grey Valley! Zheng Rui, at the head of the group, was the first to see the girl's corpse, impaled on a long spear and fixed to an ice tree.
The girl was naked, and she must have been dead for some time. Her entire body was covered in a thin layer of ice. Dried bloodstains remained near her lower body. The blood frozen within the thin ice, her eyes were wide open.
Her face frozen in an expression of terror and despair. Anyone who looked upon her would know what she had endured before her death. Damn the ghost sect! Zheng Miao cursed, her voice choked with tears. They should all die. 1,000 times over.
Several other girls in the group trembled slightly as they looked at the icy corpse. Whether from anger or fear, it was hard to tell. Bury her and then move on. Don't linger. Her teeth clenched. Don't worry, she gritted out. We'll be back.
When we return, we'll avenge her and slaughter every disciple of the ghost sect. Pantao didn't speak, silently burying the girl's body. Afterwards, the group continued towards the desert, each person too silent to even bother talking.
Nie Tian could feel their burning hatred for the ghost sect, knowing that sooner or later they would unleash it, sacrificing ghost sect disciples to appease the souls of the dead. After an unknown amount of time,
they finally passed through the glacial region and entered the scorching desert. Both were in the Xuanhuan realm, not far apart. Yet the desert and the glacial region they had just traversed were worlds apart. As soon as they entered the desert,
everyone was drenched in sweat, feeling as if the sand beneath their feet was being roasted by flames. Not long into their journey across the desert, bodies. Nie Tian caught up,
only to see a young man in the clothes of the Lingyan sect lying shriveled on a pile of sand. The boy seemed to have not a single drop of blood left in his body, dry and withered like a corpse. This is his. Pantao bent down to examine it,
then suddenly turned back to Anying. Blood sect. It's the blood sect's doing.
This episode is complete. Welcome to subscribe, turn on the small bell forward, please leave your comments. I will continue to update the content behind.